The hymn Abide With Me is held as deeply loved among hymn singers. It's important for we facilitators of hymn singing to ask the question, why is that? Because hopefully that helps us in our facilitating the singing in a meaningful way. Sometimes the origins of the text and tune are helpful in answering that question. Sometimes the mere era can be helpful. In this case, the 19th century, which musicologists call the Romantic era, which suggests that emotion might carry more weight than intellect, or how it dances, or if it dances at all. The text is by 19th century Anglican priest Henry Light. It may have begun at a bedside vigil of a dying friend who kept imploring Pastor Light, "Abide with me, abide with me, abide with me." 27 years later, Henry Light handed the completed text to a relative after preaching his last sermon as his health declined. He died later that same year, and the hymn was sung for its first time at the funeral, perhaps with the tune of his own making. So one could say that this text was in process for those 27 years. It was being rehearsed constantly throughout his life, and then finally used at his end of life. The text begins with what seems to be a clear reference to the New Testament narrative we call the road to Emmaus. This was right after the resurrection of Jesus. Two of the disciples were walking, and the resurrected Jesus joins them, but they didn't recognize who this was. Jesus asks them, "What were you discussing?" And they look at him with astonishment and go, "Are you the only one who doesn't know what's been going on around here and what has happened?" And they proceed to tell all about Jesus, all that he had done, how they had crucified him, and he was dead, and now they can't find his body. He's gone. Well, Jesus compassionately teaches them all about God from the start and salvation through the prophets, and tells them the whole story. And then they recognize who this is. It's Jesus. So God in Jesus had not left them, was in fact walking with them in their grief. So as evening was approaching, they said to Jesus, "Stay with us, for it's becoming evening and you'll need a place to stay. Abide with us, abide with us." I think this is why people find it so meaningful. The constant reminder that we are not alone, that God walks through us in difficult times, in times of anxiety and fear, in times of radical change. It helps us remember that God does not change. It's calming. And we need to rehearse this, perhaps for 27 years, perhaps longer, our whole lifetime, and in our end of lifetime. The tune we sing with these words today was written for this text by William Monk, and there are two theories of its genesis. One is that he wrote it as he and his wife sat in a time of deep grief and watched a sunset. Another story is that he was a committee member preparing for the 1861 hymnal, Hymns Ancient and Modern, and they wanted a better tune for this text, and so he went home and wrote one. No matter how it came into being, that hymnal was published with this text and tune that we sing today. To introduce this hymn, I like to use an improvisation based on Bach's organ choral prelude on Schmücke dich, Soul, adorn yourself with gladness. I like to adapt it for this hymn because the accompaniment melody outlines the melody of Abide With Me, and I love the gentle walking bass, reminding me of the road to Emmaus and the disciples walking on the road with Jesus right next to them without knowing that. And the piece is very calming, as if to say, relax, take a deep abdominal breath. Psychologists teach us that deep abdominal breath can change our thoughts from anxiety. For the stanzas, once again, as in other hymns, I see movement. It begins with an introspective prayer. Darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. Change and decay, and all around I see. O thou who changest not, abide with me. And the stanzas move to a point of strength in God's presence. I fear no foe, and I triumph still if thou abide with me. We rehearse this our whole lifetime, constantly reminding us that God is with us in everything and doesn't change. And we get near our own end, and perhaps we can sing with great confidence to ourselves or in our services, in life, in death, O Lord, abide with me, abide with me, abide with me.